Chapter 2 introduces the exchange system. It is further explained in Appendix D of your text. The exchange system and versions of it is used by many diet plans and diet programs. For example, the exchange system concept is the basis for Weight Watchers. We'll learn an abbreviated version of the exchange system for the purposes of this course. The goal is to provide the student with the ability to estimate macronutrient and calorie content of various food groups. Foods in the exchange system are placed into 8 food groups based on similarity in macronutrient and energy or calorie content. For example, cheese and eggs go in the meat group because they contain approximately the same amount of protein, fat, and calories as 1 ounce of chicken or lean beef. Corn, peas, potatoes are included in the starch bread group because they also contain similar amounts of carbohydrate, fat, protein, and calories as a slice of bread or other starchy item. Some items may be found in multiple lists. For example, a small amount of raw cabbage is treated as a free food list item because the calories are less than 20 per serving, but cooked cabbage appears in the vegetable list. More calories are absorbed from cooked cabbage, so when cooked, cabbage goes into the vegetable list, where 1 serving has 25 calories, 5 grams of carbohydrate, 2 grams of protein, and negligible amounts of fat. The exchange system was originally developed by the American Dietetic Association, which is now called the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and the American Diabetic Association to help diabetics assure their macronutrient distribution was evenly provided throughout the day and to keep the carbohydrates consistent. This prevents dramatic increases and decreases in blood sugar. Diabetics use the system to control carbohydrate intake at meals and snacks, and then they take a set dose of insulin to cover the amount of carbohydrates they consume. People seeking to lose weight use the exchange system to follow a calorie control diet that allows for a variety of foods because foods can be exchanged for each other within the lists while maintaining the same calories. For example, if a person was prescribed 3 starches for breakfast, he or she could choose 2 pieces of toast and a serving of grits one morning, and the next morning the 3 starches could be 2 small muffins and cereal. It's very similar to the point system if you're familiar with Weight Watchers. Although the exchange system includes a combination fast food exchange list, it encourages the consumption of low-fat sugar food items and emphasizes consumption of whole foods like fruits, vegetables, low-fat meats, and dairy products. Athletes can use the information to keep a running total of calories or grams of protein or carbohydrate consumed each day. Dietitians use the exchange system to develop menu plans for diabetics or people seeking to lose weight. Meal plans using the exchange system can be customized. As we said, foods are placed into the groups based on their general composition of macronutrients. A fruit will have 60 calories, 15 grams of carb, no fat, and no protein. Specified portions of foods in each group are exchangeable with the other foods in that group. So if we use the fruit list, for example, half a cup of orange juice can be exchanged for a cup of strawberries without increasing calories and carbohydrate grams. Foods classified, as I said, are based on similarity of macronutrients and calories. And here are the different groups. In the first, we have the starch group. We have the fruit, milk, vegetable, meat and meat substitute group, fat, and then there's also a free list and a combination food list. Again, the student is encouraged to very carefully review Appendix D and study the foods in each of these groups. You don't have to memorize the serving sizes, but the appendix will provide those for you to look them up. The student does have to know, generally speaking, which food would belong in each group. We'll begin with the starch group. Remember that this is the predominant list if you look in the appendix. It's the one that has the most amount of foods in it. Every starch has 15 grams of carb, 3 grams of protein, and a negligible amount of fat and 80 calories. The student is responsible to memorize the macronutrient and calorie level ascribed to a starch serving. So a half a cup of oatmeal, slice of bread, half of an English muffin, half of a hot dog or hamburger bun, a half a cup of starchy vegetable would have 15 grams of carb, 3 grams of protein, no fat, and 80 calories per serving. Please refer to Appendix D for more foods that are located in the starch group. We've already mentioned that the fruit group has 15 grams of carb, no protein or fat, and 60 calories. Half of a large banana or one small banana, 1 1/4 cups of strawberries, half a cup of orange juice, or 3/4 cup of fresh pineapple would all have this amount of macronutrient and calories. In the milk group, the student only has to memorize that the 2% value. Although this group has some subcategories that include fat-free and very low fat and whole milk, we're going to stick with the 2%. So 1 8-ounce glass of 2% milk or an 8 ounce of soy milk or yogurt would have 120 calories, 12 grams of carb, 8 grams of protein, and 5 grams of fat. In the vegetable group, half a cup of cooked or 1 cup of raw vegetables will have 5 grams of carb, 2 grams of protein, no fat unless something's been added to it during cooking, and 25 calories. Now the meat and meat substitute list has 4 subcategories, but the student is only required to memorize the medium fat category. And meats are based on an egg, which it's about 1 ounce and has 75 calories per ounce, 7 grams of protein, and 5 grams of fat. Now, when most people eat meat, they eat more than 1 ounce. For example, a thigh would be 3 ounces, or a drumstick would be 1 to 2 ounces. Chicken breast might be 3 to 4 ounces. And so we'd have to multiply those ounces by 75, 7, and 5, respectively. Note there are no carbohydrates in a meat exchange. So in the medium fat group, we would talk about eggs, lean beef, cheese. Now, sausage and peanut butter would be considered a high fat, but again, we're going to try to abbreviate the system for you a bit. In the fat group, a teaspoon of oil, half a tablespoon of peanut butter, a tablespoon of reduced fat mayonnaise, or a tablespoon of cream cheese or a slice of bacon would all have 45 calories and 5 grams of fat. Some people look at the food label for an estimation of carbohydrates. And so if we look at the starch exchange, milk, fruit, and starch exchanges have roughly the same amount of carbohydrates. Remember, we said a glass of milk has about 12, but our fruit and starches had 15 grams per serving. So when you're using a food label to just count up your carbohydrates, look at the total grams of carb on the food label and divide that number by 15. That'll give you the number of carbohydrate exchanges. So whatever this food label is, I'm not really sure. Looks like some sort of some sort of snack food, has 15 grams of carbs, so that would count as 1 carbohydrate. So let's look at how we could use the exchange system. Let's say that we have a young man who needs 2,400 calories. Now, based on information that you learned in Chapter 1, about half of our calories should come from complex carbohydrates. So if we divide 2,400 calories by half, then that person is going to need 1,200 calories from carbohydrate. We also learned in Chapter 1 that a gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories. So if we divide 1,200 calories from carbohydrate by 4, it will tell us how many grams of carbohydrate that we need each day. And we see that that's 300. Since 1 carb exchange is roughly 15 grams, if we divide 300 grams by 15, then we know that this male will need 20 carbohydrate exchanges per day. That may sound like a lot, but remember that a serving size is quite small. So here's a sample. We're going to divide the 20 grams of carb throughout the day. We start with breakfast, 5 exchanges. Lunch, he'll get 5 exchanges. 2 at a snack, 5 at dinner, and 3 for a bedtime snack. And this would be quite typical of a person who was a diabetic and needed to keep their carbohydrates consistent. So for breakfast, toast, grits, cereal, milk, and orange juice would approximate his 5 carb exchanges. But remember, this is only half a glass of orange juice. He needs to limit himself to 8 ounces of milk, 3/4 cup of cereal, half a cup of grits, and 1 slice of toast. For lunch, the sandwich with the bread would give him 2 exchanges. Apple would be 1, small serving of pretzels, about 1 ounce, and a few graham crackers. For a snack, he could have a whole banana, and remember that a half of a banana would be 1 fruit serving, but since he's having the whole one, that would approximate his 2 carbs. At dinner, again, we see 1 roll, a serving of potatoes and peas, glass of milk, and a serving of fruit would give him his 5 carb exchanges. Now, we haven't included the meat in here or the non-starchy vegetables, but we're just focusing on the carbohydrates. And then for a bedtime snack, he might have some cereal with milk and fruit. So that gives you an idea of how the exchange system is used to develop a menu plan for someone who needs to control their carbohydrates and blood sugars throughout the day.